So, I wanted to make this video to help all the new recruits that wanted to help us out but didn't know how. For starters, you're going to need access to Photoshop. It doesn't matter which version you have, all you need to be able to do is save in Photoshop document. So, for starters, I'm going to be teaching like as though you've never used Photoshop before in your life. This is your first time ever opening it. First, we're going to open up our cleaning test folder, which is the cleaner test that I have available on our Tumblr. The pages might change depending on when you view this video because I like to keep it current so it displays what kind of cleaning that you're going to be dealing with when it comes to all of our current series. So let's just open up the first page. So now that you have the cleaning test page open, the first thing that you want to do is make sure that the mode is in grayscale. To find the mode, you go up to the top, click image, and mode. If the page is black and white, and it's supposed to be black and white, then you want to click and make sure that it's in grayscale. It should never be in RGB because RGB is only for colored pages. A sample of what a colored page should look like is something like this or something like this. Okay. Now, once that is in grayscale as it's supposed to be, the next step is to open up your layers window. You can find it by going to Windows and then clicking Layers. This is what the layers window should look like. It is your main workspace, so you want to make sure that you have access to it at all times. It'll make your life so much easier because it's just actively there. The first thing you do is either click and then drag it to this little thing here. This is normally an add layer shortcut, but if you click and drag it, it'll just duplicate whatever layer you're currently holding. Another way is just to click it, right click, and click duplicate layers. It'll still do the same thing. The next step is to click this little folder icon. It's called grouping in Photoshop, but it's basically what you expect a folder would do. It will just clump all the layers that you put into it, and then you can just hide it. So what we're going to do is put the duplicated layer into the folder. So whenever we're not using it, we can just hide it like this. It comes in handy when there's like over 40 layers. And then the next step is to click this little half white, half black circle. It's an adjustment shortcut. And then you're going to click levels and it'll open up this window. So I found out the best way to explain how leveling works is to actually have two of these layers. So we're going to make one more level adjustment layer and we're going to name this one hyper leveling just so that we don't get confused on which one is which. So this one will be called the levels and this one will be called hyper leveling. So what we're going to do first is on the hyper leveling layer, we're going to move this middle key all the way to the left, or sorry, to the right. And then while that's all the way over there, we want to go back to the leveling layer and we're going to start by moving the right side. The right side shows things that are black and then the left side will show you things that are white. So what we want to start doing is slowly using your mouse key, or sorry, your mouse wheel. We're going to lower this, and the more you lower it, you'll see that a lot of these clumps are starting to go away. So this is the original, and then as we move the increments down, we'll see that most of these start to go away. These are called dust. So to around here seems like it's the best. And you can try hiding the hyper leveling layer, this layer, by clicking this eyeball. And then if you want to see what the original looks like versus how much you've leveled so far, you can click the eyeball on this layer and then you can just keep comparing it to see how much you change the image by leveling. This seems to be a good spot on how much you should be leveling because it got rid of most of these clutters. You don't want to do too much because it takes away from the art. Like here is like an example of over leveling. Notice how the screen tones have just all basically gone away. It's really hard to look on the eyes because it's just so sharp. Okay, so I'm gonna move it back to around here. And then we go back to the hyper leveling layer. And then we're going to take this middle arrow that we move all the way to the right. We're going to move it all the way to the left. And what this is going to show is things that are supposed to be black. It's actually showing your white pixels. So, for example, this necktie right here is supposed to be completely black. And the hyperleveling shows us that it's actually not black. If it was black, it would actually be colored black. The same thing for these fonts, but so what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way to the left side and we're going to start to increase the increments until you start to see blacks. And notice how this is slowly turning black. You're going to keep doing that until it's mostly black. You don't want to do it too much because it actually makes the art very dark. And this is how much we've done it. To experienced users, they would tell you that we're just trying to move these arrows to the bottom of the peak, but I find that a lot of newbies will still overdo it because where they see the bottom of the peak, it might be different from experienced users. So I find that using the hyperleveling technique will help you a lot. And what it also helps with is when you start to clean text. So let's move this little middle arrow key all the way back to the right. And what some people do that I've noticed is when they try to remove these texts, they'll leave some markings behind. Like here's an example. Because we use the hyper leveling, it will show us if something is left behind. You can either clean while the hyper leveling is on, just so that it helps your eye a little bit more. Until you're more experienced with it and can do it faster.